Ramblin Man here. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about just our country in general. I've always said, well, recently I said that our world's no worse than it ever has been. It's just social media made it worse and things. And I stand by the fact that social media has made it worse. But I would say because of that, our world is in a much worse place than it has ever been, especially our country. The United States is nothing like it was when I was a kid growing up. There's shootings all the time, and in a country where cops can be judged for killing a black man, but black on black crime, 60 people die over the Father's Day weekend in Chicago, just one city. 60 people die, or are shot, not die, but are shot over the weekend on Father's Day, yet that's not even brought up because why? Because it's black on black crime. Had nothing to do with a white cop or shooting a black man. So it's just things like that. We choose battles. We choose these different things that we go after, and that's where they resonate. And so within our culture, within our society, we choose what's important to us. And right now I feel like we're choosing all the wrong things. So there's a school board right now that, first off, a lot of school boards are fighting the whole thing of teaching critical race theory, which I don't believe it should be taught because you're just teaching more people to hate. Think about this real quick. So when I was a kid, we heard things like, that especially if you're from a small community, which you didn't have people of color in, you would hear things that nowadays would totally be unacceptable. And over time, because you think about when my parents were kids, it was in the 60s, maybe in the 50s, and at those times they had already started changing, especially with Martin Luther King Jr., MLK going through and doing all the stuff he did for equal rights, which was phenomenal. And over time, things started to change. And I can tell you, going into the Army, when I went in the Army, it was a culture shock for me, and not because I hadn't been around people of color, but it's a melting pot. The Army is a melting pot. If you had any prejudice, a lot of that goes out the window because at some point you don't see someone as a different color. You see someone and people say, oh, you don't see color. You just see green. They say it all the time because you're always wearing the same uniform, and they're your brothers. They are your brothers and your sisters. You would die for them. And that's just true about that camaraderie that you have. Now, I will tell you that over time, though, in the last few years, all this stuff with racism and stuff has not helped transform things. What's happened is all this push for equality in the wrong way has caused a lot of problems. And when I say that, tell me I'm wrong, but tell me how I'm wrong. Don't just say, oh yeah, you're wrong. Okay, tell me how I'm wrong, because here's what I'll tell you, things start moving in the right direction. And if you have a kid that constantly complains about something, after a while you just get tired of hearing it, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to hear it anymore, so it turns you away from it. That's kind of what has happened with people of color. Not for me. I'm talking about when you look at things that are happening online, people's comments and things, people become numb to the fact that, after a while, it's never about, I see it from both sides, black, white, Mexican, it doesn't matter. It's like, you people. That pisses me off because you people is a negative connotation towards a group of people, whether that's black towards whites, black towards Mexican, Mexican towards black, Mexican towards whites, whites towards, you know what I'm saying, towards a general. I said something the other day, and somebody says, yeah, well, you people, they don't even know me. You can't see what color I am on there, but they assume I'm a white male or a white female. They don't know that I'm half Mexican. They have no idea who I am, but they assume, and you always tell you what they say about assume. Assuming makes an ass out of you and me. Remember that. So don't assume things. But I just feel like everything this push for Black Lives Matter and everything else has made it much worse than it was. It was moving in the right direction, and what it's done is it's caused racism that doesn't exist to rear its ugly head, because people start. If you look for something hard enough, you're going to find it. My wife tells me that all the time. If she went through my phone, if she wanted to find something, she would find it because I'm looking for it. So we just don't look for stuff like that, because you can take anything out of context and make it worse than it is. That being said, I feel like that's what's happened with our government, with our world right now. Now, let me tell you something. So, let me tell you about our school system. Talking about critical race theory and even transgender stuff. Now, there's a couple things. I can tell you how a lot of this has changed. We took a couple things out of our schools. That was prayer and pledge. There's a couple places that still do pledge, but that's just their choice as a school district. Because otherwise, they've taken the pledge out, they've taken prayer out, and I think it's funny, like how you can't do a Christian Bible study, but you can do stuff where people are reading the Quran, all kinds of different things. Like have these clubs, but you can't have other things. Pretty crazy to me how things have really changed. Now let me tell you this. So what they're doing right now is the whole reason that there's a school board meeting that just erupted into like 2 people were arrested and all kinds of stuff. And I forget where this was. I just saw it earlier. I looked at it, but I've forgotten since then. But there were like 100 and something people that wanted to speak. Only 51 people were heard because it went on a long time talking about transgender pronouns. And they wanted a policy in place that required teachers to address students how they prefer, what gender they preferred. So if they were a boy and wanted to be a girl, you would call them she, or now they just have this thing where you call them they. Well, if you know the English language, there's no they. It's not like there's more than one person there. You're either a male or a female. You're not both. And so no matter what you say, if you can't have a baby because you don't have a uterus and you have male genitalia, you don't have a uterus, and you were born a male, you are a male. It doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want to say. You can go through, no, and people will argue till you're blue in the face because people will say you're closed-minded. Well, if you're not willing to listen to the actual truth of male versus female, then who's the closed-minded one? That's all I got to say about that. So, anyway, they're talking about calling these transgender people the way they see themselves, right, by the pronoun that they see. Well, the people with the school, the parents and stuff, and some of the teachers have gone against that and had a big protest in regard to that. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but I know it was a big deal. Now, I will tell you this. Let me check this out and make sure I got my notes right. So what I wanted to address with you is people say, well, it's not a big deal, to have if someone wants to go to the bathroom or use a different bathroom because they think of themselves as a girl. Here's what I'll tell you about that. I don't want my child going into the bathroom with a man, regardless a boy, whatever, regardless if he feels like he is a girl. She shouldn't have to be subjected to that, because there's a reason that you don't have them going in the same bathrooms, because you don't want to see genitalia. If that transgender's okay with that, that's one thing. But on the flip side, the people that are in there, they have rights too. They have rights to not have to look at that, or their parents have their kids go in there and not be subjected to that. Their lifestyle. Now, I'll tell you this. When I was playing sports, and I'm sure a lot of y'all can attest to this, especially that 7th grade, 8th grade, you start changing in front of everybody. We didn't have like co-ed. We didn't like, hey, all the men and girls and boys all go change together. There's a reason for that, because your hormones are on high alert, right? So why would you want your child in sports? So if you have a boy that identifies as a girl, you're not going to let them go change in with all the girls. Why? Because I don't want this people seeing. I don't want my daughter seeing a boy naked, even though they identify as a girl. They still have the boy parts. So That's ridiculous. I don't understand that. I don't understand how people can honestly say, well, I'm okay with that. That's nothing you're okay with. I remember we were taking, having to take showers and stuff. We were all boys, and we were already nervous about being naked in front of other boys. Imagine throwing a girl in there that identifies as a boy. Heck no. Talk about, you don't want somebody looking at you and stuff, and it's just an awkward time altogether. And they said, well, calling them by their pronouns is what they say, suicide prevention. Well, if you tell your child, say your child goes through and they're like, you know what, I identify as a boy. Okay, well, you know what? You can't do anything about that right now because you're a kid. When you are an adult and you have a chance to look at that and decide to make that choice and choose that for yourself, fine, because you're an adult, you can make that choice. But while you're a child, you will do as you're supposed to do. There shouldn't be, you just love your child. You don't tell them like, hey, it's such a bad thing that you think you're a male or you think you're a female that you're going to kill yourself. That's crazy. That is crazy. So support, yeah, you want to support your children, but at the same time, we have so much stuff being pushed on our kids right now that some of them are just confused. So I'll tell you right now, if you think that critical race theory needs to be taught in the schools, no, it doesn't. And if you think that transgender or gender or kids that think they're one gender even though they're biologically another should be in the same dressing room or bathrooms, they shouldn't. And our schools should not be required to do these things, because what's going to happen is more and more people are just going to pull their kids out of school because that is ridiculous. And our education system is already going down the tube. So either they need to fix stuff and get on the same page. It's not a place, they don't want you teaching religion at school. So why would you teach things that you don't believe in, like different genders and critical race theory? Why should you be required to teach those things if you're not required, if you can't teach about religion? Separation of church and state. I think the state needs to stay out of a lot of things. You just teach them. How about when you go to school, if you're a boy or a girl, you go in there and you teach them history, math, science, the things that are actually going to matter in life. The rest of it, they'll get off social media anyway, so it doesn't matter what you say. Unless you're at a liberal college, you shouldn't be teaching that crap. This is public education. So how about you educate them? Not on what is the latest fad, but how about the basics? That would be important. Thanks so much. Ramblin' Man out.